Christmas Eve, Brackenbury. Stay. Okay. I live in the country and I write poetry and I'm happily in love and I have dogs and I've got plenty of sunshine, and so it's a wonder I write anything at all. This first poem I'm going to dedicate to my friend Deb because she really likes this poem and I know she's tuning in to watch. And of course, all of my poetry is dedicated to my husband. Folk art. He works at the kitchen sink, separating loin from steak, tossing the rest in a box to be browned into burger. My husband skillfully processes his own deer, acting more like a folk artist than a butcher, bringing to our home something that harkens back to days when men were men and women were women, and me, his woman, not afraid to butcher at his side, and later, eager to let him take me. This next poem is dedicated to my friend Paul, who's also watching, and he suggested I read this one. It's called Old Remington. Johnny drove into a sleepy little town one afternoon because a buddy told him about a gun dealer who had an old Remington for sale. His old man used to have a Remington, used it to shoot varmints like crows and coyotes, and for hunting meat when it was to be found, turkey and pheasant, and especially deer. His old man spent a lot of time in the woods by himself, getting away from the factory soot and smoke and depression, wishing all he had to do was hunt and fish and work his own piece of land. Johnny got to tag along every now and again and watch his buddy walk slowly and think deeply, stopping every so often to look for tracks or listen for birds talking. And his dad tried telling Johnny about respecting the land and being close to God, without having some preacher in some church tell him he was going to hell for not putting money in a collection basket. His old man was long dead now, and the factory was closing up. Johnny had started on when he was 15, and the factory paid to bury his daddy when Johnny was 20. Something like a quiet, solemn hope settled in his chest when he took hold of that old Remington. Now he could go do what needed to be done, beg for work, whatever it was, wherever it was. But first, he would take his boy for a walk in the woods and talk about God and respecting the land and being a man. This next poem is dedicated to the soldiers who've come home. It's called Various Shades of Tan and Gray. I gaze over the bluff across acres of quiet farmland. It is January. The snow and ice have gone, melted by a rare break in the weather. The fields are various shades of tan and gray. The sun is warm on my face, and I can almost see the invisible heat waves radiating off the hillsides. And for a moment, I forget I'm not seeking my enemy in the sand dunes of war. This next poem is about soldiers, and I also chose it in honor of today being Good Friday. The title of it is called Shadowed Ground, and it's actually a term I learned in a cultural geography class. And it's a place for bloodshed and sacrifice, usually memorials or battleground fields. Shadowed grounds. I walk in the shadows that alight my senses. My eyes adjust to reflections of the past. I taste bitter memories. They feed my thoughts. Air, grown stale with decay, fills my lungs. I hear voices, echoing in silence, and I am chilled by history, frozen in time. I visit these shadowed grounds, places of bloodshed and of sacrifice, sacred soil not forgotten, and I feel condemned. I walk across a landscape painted red with bloodshed. My footsteps retrace a portrait of humanity. Casualties of evil crowd the empty fields. They are held captive by keepers of freedom. The righteousness of man falls short of glory, but yet their paths of sacrifice lead me toward truth. As I remember a promise of redemption, my Savior guides my feet onto a path of peace. He promises to shine on those living in darkness and in the shadow of death. I visit his shadowed ground, a place of bloodshed and of sacrifice, sacred soil not forgotten, and I surrender. This next poem is called Blues Wanderer. I fell from heaven a while back, been wandering ever since. I realize now I was summarily dismissed due to gravitational tendencies. I blame only myself and my lack of control. At first, I tried to reform, walk the straight and narrow, so to speak, but walking just got me into trouble. Tried not to look down, but couldn't help myself. I kept falling in love with things of the earth. I followed a piece of litter dancing down an alley and found myself digging through a trash dumpster. While reading yesterday's horoscope, I heard the blues coming out of an upstairs apartment. I closed my eyes and pressed my ear against brick and listened to moans and groans and gritty love gone sour. The vibrations of life fill me with a joyous ache. And I find myself wishing this angel's heart could break like that.